Good morning, CSL Palm Desert and beyond. I'm Dr. Joe, Spiritual Director at the Center for Spiritual Living in Palm Desert. We're really glad you're here. I'm going to jump right into my talk today and my lesson today. And I have to tell you that, the side of the graphic, that what happens when they came over the wall, that introduced my workshop today, my talk today. At first, I kind of grappled with, Jesus, that's pretty direct. That's pretty up in your face. Is that really where I want to go with this? And I've had a lot of trouble approaching this subject for a number of reasons. And I'm going to be real honest with you because I had several things going on the day that all of this was happening. Let me tell you, first and foremost, my biggest concern while it was happening was that my niece, her husband, works in the Sergeant of Arms office in the Capitol. And his responsibility is to evacuate members of Congress, of the House of Representatives, and to put them in a secure location in the event something like this happens. And so as this was going on, I kept wondering with, his children watching the TV and the world watching and thinking my nephew, is working to secure these people. And so I'm watching it from a different perspective. And so I was just sort of, how shall I say, taken in with my own emotions and anger, thinking that somehow his life was in jeopardy as well as everyone else's. But now it's like, this is really, really personal. My nephew's in there working to get these people into safety. Is he going to get shot? What's going to happen here? So while it was happening, I was really struggling. And then as I continued to watch, I continued to struggle. And I'm not sure about you, but I've been sort of not listening to my own advice when it comes to not listening to the TV 24/7. After that happened, I found myself watching the television and replaying over and over all the scenes. And then, of course, everyone has their perspective and, depending on your news channel, how it was interpreted. So I sort of fell into a pattern. And I'm just being honest, I sort of fell into a pattern where I was not really dealing with it spiritually on a spiritual level. It was a very raw thing for me to deal with and a very human reaction that I was having at the time, and not necessarily a spiritual reaction. So I've had over the past couple of days, I've had to start backing away from the constant being inundated with all of the things that were happening and that are happening, because I'm riding the wave of effects of a cause that was created and has been sustained and building over quite some time, not just 4 years or 8 years, 12 years, over decades. There's been issues that are coming to the surface. And because they're coming to the surface, and at a time when every single thing around us seems to be a little chaotic, it just adds to the overall anxiety of what's happening in each particular thing that's going on. So I want to break it down a little bit, and I want to break it down on a spiritual level. I do welcome questions today. Otherwise, this is going to be a really quick talk, but I want to hear your questions. I want to hear what you have to say about how to deal with this, the questions you're having, okay? So let me clear that right now. Hang on one second. I got to clear this one thing so I can see your questions when they pop up. Okay, first things first. Everything, and I'm going to refer to my notes, everything including love, hate, and suffering needs food to continue. If suffering continues, it's because we keep feeding our suffering. I realized that that's what I was doing. I was feeding my suffering. Now, I hurt for what goes on, for the division that's going on in the country. I hurt, I see and I hear both sides, and I'm trying my best to see things clearly on both sides, which means I have to step out of my humanity and judgment and labels, and I have to step into a place where I'm just allowing people to express themselves, and allow them to express their feelings about something. And I'm really having to work on not passing judgment as to how things are being done. Because in my mind, no one needs to go through all the things we've gone through. This was, something we could have avoided. But you know what? If I know everything is happening, and this is the thing, if everything is happening for a reason, then this too is another awakening process. I mean, I think that within this particular thing that happened, with the Capitol and over the wall and into the rotunda and into the chambers and the fallout of all of those things, it brings to light some real issues between individuals and awakening processes, right? So I know that I think of myself as a person who is woke, they call it woke, or awakened to what's going on. But then when I watch something like this, I realize I still have a lot of work to do, along with everyone else has a lot of work to do, regardless of where you fall on this. And we have to say that because there are people on both sides of this that have something to say, and we're not listening to each other because we're so caught up in a lot of rhetoric, a lot of anger. We're vibrating at the level of conflict. So when you're vibrating at the level of conflict, resolution is elusive. I hope that makes sense. So whether it's your home life or whether it's happening in the world, wherever something vibrates on the level of conflict, the resolution will always be elusive because you're feeding more conflict. You're not gaining clarity. Many people, I've watched people go head to head on these subject matters, not just on TV, but sitting around my dining room and sitting around with friends and listening to them go at each other and on both sides. And I just have to sit there and go, okay, what is trying to be expressed here? What fears, because it's all fear being expressed, what fears are trying to make their way into this conversation, into this awakening process, and how can we transform that fear and start moving that energy into a positive place of building and healing for everyone? And things are still pretty raw, and they're going to stay raw for a while. And I think that, unfortunately, this whole COVID thing and the added stress of, the economy and 8 months of people being locked down and all the things that we're seeing in terms of that, it just adds to this tension, this energy. So I like that part the one thing I just read. Hang on a minute, I'll go back and find it. It cannot exist unless you feed it. Love cannot exist unless you continue to feed love. Hatred cannot exist unless you continue to feed it. All right. So whatever we're feeding, and that means let's talk about what we're feeding ourselves. It's not just the food we take in that creates our bodies. It's everything around us that creates how our bodies reflect our experience in life. So just like we take in food, we also take in energy from situations and from observing things and talking to people. We ingest those into our body, into our consciousness, and our mind begins to reflect that which we've taken in. So it's not just about a healthy diet of fresh fruits and vegetables and eating right and exercising. It's also what we put into our mental bodies. So I ask you this question, I have to ask myself this question as well. Am I putting the right stuff into my mental body, or have I become addicted to watching this stuff unfold? And through that addiction, my body is starting to react in a way that I'm feeling depressed and anxious, and even more so beyond the whole pandemic thing. Am I starting to feel that way? And then I tune in and I realize that, the Black Lives Matter movement and the way things have been treated in the past with different groups, all of these things start adding in, and my anxiety level starts to build. And I realize I'm ingesting the diet of conflict. I'm taking it in. And so naturally, my body is going to resist feeling well when those are the thoughts that are spinning through my head. So you have to ask a question. What is it going to take for me to transition off of being an observer and watching the energy versus immersing myself in the energy? And what I've come to is this: take it for what it's worth. Take it for what it's worth. I have to limit the amount of time that I look at this stuff. I have to really discipline myself not to get involved when something pops up on my phone and says breaking news. I have to just say, you know what? once a day, I'm going to immerse myself in the facts of what is happening on every side. Just look and see what's happening. I'll determine what I want to take in as the truth for myself, not what someone else is trying to convince me, but I will take in whatever facts I see and I will interpret them to the best of my ability. And I will respond in kind when people talk about this stuff in a way that moves through a loving expression. Now, that sometimes can be challenging when you're talking to people who are both armed and ready, so to speak, to have conflict with one another. They're both in a mental place to be in conflict. So I'm having to, and I'm making this recommendation as well, I'm not saying you have to back off your principles, but perhaps we need to figure out how to convey them in different ways. Agreed? We have to figure out a way that we can both, everyone, be constructive in how we relate to one another and not take everything so personally. Everything now feels so personal, and the attacks on both sides feel so personal. And so it does require each one of us to take a look at this and say, how am I participating in personal attacks? How am I generalizing? How am I making this better or making it worse? And many times I was making it worse for myself. Now, once I found out that my niece is safe, she works in DC as well, and in a secure location, and then my nephew was safe, I was breathing a little bit different. But then I was also interpreting the events, having had someone literally impacted in the moment and in jeopardy at the moment, that I knew from as a family member. So my perceptions, I realized, were very tainted and very, how shall I say, they were very intense. They were very intense. And I myself, and Trey can testify to this because he was watching it happen, I was kind of losing it. I was yelling at the TV. I was yelling at people, and I'm screaming inside my house. And for no real reason, except just to express my emotion. It wasn't going to get anything done. In fact, if anything, it was raising my blood pressure, not lowering it. So I have to ask myself, what behavior am I participating in that is facilitating a resolution, or am I continue to facilitate feelings and emotions that are fostering and feeding the energy of conflict? There we go. All right, no one's asking questions. Come on, guys, pop one up here. Some of the other stuff, here we go. Well, I read this. Some of the best advice I've been given: don't take criticism from people you would never go to advice for. So in this scenario, when I'm watching things unfold, I'm watching them and going, okay, do I really, who am I listening to? And why? And am I listening only so that I can make my point on the other side of this? Or am I listening to actually hear what someone has to say? And what I found myself is that I wasn't listening to hear. I was listening so that I could create an opportunity for me to express myself yet again, and usually with the same people and usually with the same ideas, just twisted a little bit a different way. I found myself waiting for those opportunities. So I think we have to be careful how we interact with each other and literally come up with scenarios so that we can decide what, when, and how I want to talk about this, when and how we're going to talk about this. Having dinner with some people the other day, we began discussing, we were all social distance, we were all spread out at a table, and certain topics would come up, and I went, no, can't do that here. I can't do that here. I cannot talk about this stuff while I'm putting food in my body, while I'm nourishing my body. I'm ingesting toxic energy and exchanging it with all of you. That is not blessed food going into my body. That is something chaotic that is going to become more and more chaotic. So how do we look at this spiritually as the Center for Spiritual Living, and not just Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert, but Center for Spiritual Living International, the global organization? I think we have to look at this as everything that is happening is a cause for a different effect. And remember how I've taught this several times. I always say, the universe has a way of kind of like nudging us a little bit, that divine nudge saying, okay, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. And then if we don't, the way the universe tries to wake us up becomes a little stronger. Like instead of tapping us on the shoulder, it becomes like a slap on, okay, pay attention, pay attention. I'm like, well, that's irritating, but I avoid it too. I don't take time to really research why this is happening. And then boom, I get hit upside the back of the head and I'm like, wow. And so now I have a headache and now this hurts and my shoulder's hurting and all these things are like starting to bug me, but I still ignore the fact that I'm not addressing what needs to be addressed. And so the universe continues to escalate its expression until there is an awakening process. I think that this pandemic, and I can only speculate because God only knows. I think that the Black Lives Matter, I think that what's going on at the Capitol building, these are all things to bring people and wake up those who can have an awakening. Wake them up and say, let's look at this and move differently tomorrow. Not today, tomorrow. We can look at this now. And I've said this, one of the reasons I didn't come out publicly at all on this is because I had to sit with this for a while. And I kept thinking, if I have to sit with this for a while, I am not capable, nor should I create a spiritual bypass to make everyone feel better until we all sit with this and sit with the magnitude of this. And one of the issues that I had is I don't want to go out there and try to create for people this spiritual out and Pollyanna approach of life when real things are happening, when there are definite things happening that are creating division within our own world. All right. So I made a choice, and it may be a right one, it may be a wrong one, to say, wait, hold off. Now, in our shows last week, I do know that I listened to Dr. Laura's show, I listened to Charles' show, I was listening to the shows, The Fabulous Five. Everyone addressed things that were happening on the global level, on the level of, the violence that was happening. So they were being approached, but it wasn't a target. It wasn't something saying, okay, we need to focus purely on this. We need to focus on the wall. We need to focus on, what was going on there. Because I know that if I gloss over something and create my spiritual bypass, then many times those lessons come back for me to learn again because I didn't go through them, I went around them. Follow that? Sometimes with our problems, we have to go through them, right? We have to walk through them instead of creating a bypass to go around them. Because if we go around them, then the energy, the unresolved issues within our own minds, it's still there. All I did was put it back here instead of having it in front of me. And we can be really good about living in a state of denial. We can be great about living in a state of denial and saying, well, I dealt with it, I'm moving on. But still there's this energy because you never really flushed it out of the way you were thinking about things. My dad taught me many, many years ago. He said, Joe, you have to understand that whenever you see conflict, right? Whenever you see, disagreements or conflict, whether it's in a boardroom or in a meeting or on a national level, on a statewide level, wherever you see the conflict, there's something that needs to be heard. And it is your job to figure out how to safely hear those things safely and interpret them in such a way where people feel heard and move in a direction to try to bring things together. Just make an attempt at it. And to do it in such a way where no one feels like they were ignored and not heard or overridden, but rather a conversation that is filled with possibilities, not cut downs, not criticisms. I hope that makes sense. All right, I haven't gotten any questions yet. I got to thank you out there, but I haven't gotten any questions. Okay, I'm going to go to my next train of thought here. All right. Here's another one. Accountability feels like an attack when you're not ready to acknowledge how your behavior harms others. From both sides. I realized that I was not taking accountability for what I was screaming at the TV, and I wasn't taking responsibility for the things that were pouring out of my mouth. And I realized that, go back to the 4 agreements. Are my words helping or harming? And at the moment, they were reactionary and they were not helping anybody. That was not helping a soul. It was just in some way, a release of some energy that I thought that was a productive way to do that. And in the end, it really wasn't, because I found my body just shaking, literally just shaking out of anger and fear and all of those emotions, going, oh my gosh, I'm worrying about my nephew and my niece and their families and their kids, and how the kids are watching this all unfold live, knowing that their parents are a part of this and in the middle of this, and they can't talk with them, they can't connect with them. I felt for those little beings that were in a sense of panic. And then I realized that it's not just there's a whole bunch of people around the world watching this with a sense of panic. So I had to really ask myself, were the words that I'm trying to express at that moment, were they helpful or harmful? I know for me, they were probably not helpful at all. They just created an opportunity for other people in the room to pile on, which we did really well. We all pile on very well, and we all try to, make our point known, which are usually the same points. But every once in a while, there would be a different way to look at things, and that's what I want to say for this. Is there a different way that we can throttle back the emotion and see what is really looking to be healed here? What is looking to express here? What is and not put a label of good or evil on it, but put an opening on our part to listen to a fear, because everything's derivative of love or fear. Oh no, actually, Neil Donald Walsh said everything is derivative of love, but not a whole story. See what the absence of love is in this situation. See how people are feeling an absence of love in a situation, and not make it a point by point, this happened, this happened, this happened, but see the global emotion that's trying to take place, the emotion of what is looking to be put forward. Not an agenda and not a list of things, grievances or attacks, but what is the emotion that is looking to move forward, and how can I help be a bridge for people who are experiencing all sorts of different emotions. Okay. Another one, the struggle that we feel is very real, but understand that all struggle is manufactured by consciousness. The universe doesn't spiritually struggle with itself. Human beings, we do a really good job. Human beings create struggles. And in this case, we have a huge one that's in front of us, right? But the struggle it's not real, it's manufactured. And just like, building a car, would you keep building a car that's breaking down? And we keep building something that keeps breaking down. So that tells us that the building process that keeps breaking down needs to be revisited. And how can we build something differently? So both sides of not both sides, but all sides, because there's more than just two. All sides of this can come together in some way, shape, or form. And will it happen quickly? God, I wish it would. But just like this pandemic, thinking, oh yeah, we'll have Christmas in July, and July breezes by. We had no idea how long things take to resolve. When you put something into the universe, when you put a question into the universe, remember, it takes a logical and sequential order of events and things to transpire for them to reveal itself. And they have to reveal themselves through an opening in the consciousness of people who are open to revealing something. So when people are all entrenched in their positions, there is no opening on either side for something else to be born here. So there's no receptivity. So we have to open up this idea that everything we should do is a spiritual awakening process, especially something like this. This is a unique opportunity for an awakening to occur. I was talking to someone and they said, well, this age of Aquarius, they were supposed to be the way the astronomy and the stars were lining up, and that this new thing was happening. I said, come on, did you expect it to be a light switch? No, these are not light switch issues. These are not light switch issues. You can't just turn these on and off. These are issues that have been grounded in a pattern of what we call race consciousness, which is the thoughtmosphere of the world. There's been conflict and fear, and those things have been fostered for so long that it's going to take more than a couple stars aligning for us to move through, not bypass, but to move through. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Hang on, guys. I got a error message. Oh no, I think I lost everybody. Are you ready? Krista, am I still there? Krista, hello? Am I still there?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's all I needed to hear, because something popped up on my screen, and next thing you know, you guys all disappeared. All right, I'm glad I'm here. And now I forgot where I was, but it doesn't matter. Come on, folks, give me some questions, because I'm not the only one learning how to deal with this. All right, I'm going to continue on. All right. Here we go. So Byron Katie wrote this: "It's not your job to like me, it's mine." And I bring that up because when there's conflict like this, when there's this vibration and energy, many people want to be liked at the end of the conversation. They want to be respected at the end of the conversation. And what I would say is this: all of those things are things from the self. I don't need someone else's approval for me to express my feelings and expect them to still like me, even if I don't agree with it. Now, I want to be able to like people and be in their company, but I've also noticed that there's some energy I don't want to be around anymore. And I've thrown a flag up, and I've told Trey, I said, you know what? I can't be around this energy anymore. It drains my life out of me. It drains the excitement and enthusiasm out of me, and it puts me in a place where, by the time I'm leaving these situations, I am very depressed and my energy level is low, and I'm feeling like, I can't do this anymore. And so I have to ask myself, are the people I'm experiencing in my life, are they bringing me something that is of joy? And is that something I need to foster? And do I need to, once again, lovingly release people who are lovingly, not blast them out of the water, but lovingly release people that I can't vibrate with. I can't align with. All right. Here we go. So how do you consider what happened and the folks that are actively involved? Okay, good question. Each and every person is expressing themselves to the level of their understanding. It may not be mine, but it's theirs. I have an expectation for myself as to how I would express things, but that's just given my level of wisdom and knowledge, and also my ability to convey thoughts that way. But I would do the best I could. And what I have to realize is, for the people that are demonstrating in a certain way, or there are things on both sides that are not happening, that are vibrating negatively, everyone is operating at the level of their awareness, their level of their consciousness, the level of what they think can be done and that they should do to get it done. And while I may not agree with them, they are doing the best that they can do given what they're working with. All of us are. All of us are. And now it transcends just this situation. If you're in a relationship, I can't be responsible for how my partner, my husband, is going to relate to me. That's on him, and how he decides to approach a subject with me. There's no way that I can dictate to him his how. He comes to his how the way he does, through his paradigm of experiences. The same thing happens on this level. They come with a paradigm of experiences and an acceptance of ideas, and they move from there. They go forward from there. And so while I may not agree with what I think is the best way to do something, I have to understand that there's ways, people have different ways of conveying things. I may not agree, but that's their way. They may not agree with my way, but that's their way. I think this is an awakening process. I think for everyone who's observing life and everything that's happening, whether it's the pandemic and the conflicts over masking and vaccines and just all the conflicts surrounding all of it, the close downs, the opening up, just all of it, watching how everybody reacts is that they're doing the very best they can with what they have to work with. It may not be mine, but it's theirs. I hope that makes sense. All right. Another one. Be careful what you tolerate. You are teaching people how to treat you. So I've experienced, I say that because I've been experiencing times when I've been sitting in silence and felt very attacked. And without allowing myself to feel comfortable enough to express myself, it's no secret that when I return back to those types of relationships and people again, the same kind of treatment happens and I feel the same way. And I think, oh, why do I keep doing this to myself? Why do I keep putting myself in the situation? So when I allow something to happen, and I do, like we all do, I'm giving permission for it to happen again and again and again. So I have to be strong enough to stand in my own faith, and what I call stand and authorize my experience was what Raymond Charles Barker talks about. I have to feel strong enough in my own faith to be able to allow myself to exit from the conversation in a kind and loving way. All right. All right. Arlene saying suggestions on relatives being the group I've thrown the towel in on, and yet they contact me daily. Yeah. Well, here's what I'll say to that. You may have thrown in the towel on these issues with this person or these people. And the question is, do you need to throw everything out with them or just conversations around certain subject matters? Remember, we always say throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Do you want to throw all of it out? And I know sometimes our response is, I just can't do this anymore. I can't relate to this anymore. I need to get them totally out of my life. Okay. Do you need to get them, or do you need to get an energy around certain subject matters? Think about it. Just things are heated right now. Things are extremely volatile. We're in COVID. I've been trying to tell people, you know, with all that is happening right now in the world, with everything that is happening in the world, please don't make permanent long-term decisions based on this period of time, which is excruciating right now for many people. But don't make long-term definitive things happen in the heat of all of this, because all of this will look different, but your behavior won't in retrospect. I want to be able to say I took the high road. I want to be able to say that my behavior was at the time, because we all could feel totally justified for doing whatever, responding in whatever form. And we could feel justified in our mind because the heat is so strong, the energy is so strong, the vibration is so strong. But look at what we're going through as a society. I mean, we've been locked down for almost a year. There are people who haven't left their homes or had physical contact with anyone for almost a year. This is not a normal situation. And then you add all of the other conflicts that are going on. Man, it's excruciating to think that we're making decisions about this stuff, right? So be careful making long-term definitive decisions, and maybe just negotiating what I want to call, I've had to negotiate a peace treaty with people. And I said, I'm not feeling peaceful when we talk about these subject matters. So in the interest of keeping our friendship, can we just talk about something else? Because we're not going to agree, and I'm not going to convince you. Also, I don't want to be in a group of awfulizers. People who get on top and everything's awful, 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 and everyone agrees how awful it is. And then we pile on top all of our situations that are awful. And then we find ourselves buried under all of the things that are awful. So we've been awfulizing, and now my whole energy and the energy of everyone around me feels awful. I don't want to be like that. So I have to not participate in the jumping on and awfulizing, even when it comes to like Trey and my family. There are certain things you just have to say, we're not going to agree on this. And we need to not, this is not a subject matter. Think about it. What have they always said? Politics and religion around the kitchen table over Thanksgiving and Christmas or any holiday should probably be avoided because it's always controversial. That hasn't changed. That hasn't changed. Now, that doesn't mean we don't educate the educable and do it in a kind and loving way and lead by example. Perhaps leading by example may be something we might want to try, especially in conversations. I'm trying my best, and I can say try because everybody says, well, if you try, you're waiting to fail. I'm doing everything I can to stay open and receptive to the ideas on every side so that I can hear what people are trying to say beyond the fact that we're battling over. What really is the cause behind this? All right. Someone just said, Mary said, I consider this what is happening. My computer is really okay. I consider this what is happening to be an expression of evil, and I used to deny evil. So am I having my own inner conflict with this? Yeah. Everything is a derivative of this one energy, right? And it's where we hook up on this one energy field. And so what we've labeled as something, we are now it's going to become our job to overcome the label, if that makes sense. Because as long as we hold on to the label, we're adding to the energy of the problem. That's just cause and effect. That is metaphysics. That you can't run from the science of this. Whatever you hang on to, you become more of. So I'm having to release the idea of labeling these things and just let whatever's supposed to happen with it unfold. See, I'm not in a place where I can make an arrest. I'm not a place where I can, I'm going to go wave a flag. I'm not in those places to do those things, right? That's not the way I want to express myself. But what I need to do is be the observer and see something larger unfolding as a result of this. I do think that we are on the cusp, and I've said this for many years, and now more than ever, because the universe, there's a crescendo, there is this intensity behind the discord that is finally bringing people to a place where we can look at things. And yeah, there are going to be people that are not going to change their mind, but there are going to be, and I'm praying for the opening of a receptivity in mind. I don't want to add and ingest more evil in my world. I don't want to intentionally engage at that level. It's not going to do me any good. The only thing that will allow me to do good is to see the forward moving process of whatever is unfolding on all sides and say that this process is a sanctioned spiritual awakening that is happening by means of the individuals who are expressing it. And that ultimately, it sounds crazy, but ultimately the highest and best good for all people will unfold in the logical and sequential order. And it's something I can't control. So I can control how I label it. I can control how I talk about it. I can control the amount of times I put myself in a situation where I'm immersed in it or watching more of it or listening or reading an article about it. I can control the amount that I ingest, right? And I can control the way I label it. We have seen conflicts create the change. We know this. Now we just have to see what change comes of this. And there'll be more conflicts and more change and more conflicts and more change. Remember that mountain in Palm Springs that I stare at every day? That mountain in Palm Springs is the result of an inner explosion inside the earth crust. It was explosive that created that majestic mountain. It was a discomfort. It was a divine urge of this stuff to explode off into and become the mountains that we look at in the desert. Those are all results of fire and lava and anger and all of it. So when we see these things happen in nature, and now we see them happening on the human front, let's just be aware, right? Let's just be aware that what we're doing is watching the evolution and the birth of whatever is meant to be for the highest and best good. Right? Right. Dr. Joe, where is that? Wait a minute. Dr. Joe, where is our forgiveness in all of this? All right. Interesting you should say that. If you watched Dr. Laura's show Thursday last week, Dr. Neil Donald Walsh and Dr. Laura had a great show, and on it was a whole segment of forgiveness. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend you go back to YouTube and watch that interview that she had with Neil Donald Walsh, because he had a new approach to forgiveness that even I've been sitting with now since I heard him talk about it. You know, and I really can't teach it because he was so eloquent, and I'm still myself processing it. But in all of this, nothing, Neil Donald Walsh says nothing needs to be forgiven because the Spirit holds nothing against us. And so I'm grappling with that. I think that's a really interesting, it's an interesting concept. I don't need to be forgiven because God has already forgiven me from whatever's happened. I don't need to forgive others because the universe has already forgiven them for what they've done. And we look at what happens next. We look at what happens next. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning something. It doesn't mean that they were right and you were wrong. It just means that I'm not hanging on to it anymore. I'm no longer going to harbor this feeling of angst or resentment or hostility. I'm no longer going to harbor that, because for me, I've ingested it. I'm drinking the poison. So, everything, it's a process. I guess what I would probably say too at this moment is people are looking for an instantaneous spiritual bypass on how to just kind of get through this. I just can't, right? I just can't. And that's not happening. There's not going to be a quick resolution to this. It took years for all of this stuff to build up, years, decades, centuries in some cases, to build up the things that are happening now. It's going to take a while to unravel them, and it's going to take people of like mind to come together to make sure they don't happen again on any level, on whatever side you're on, doesn't matter. We have to make sure that, and not through violence. And not through violence. The universe does not. This is one thing that I will say. The universe never sets out to destroy itself. It doesn't. There are other ways to have these things happen without the universe destroying itself, without violence, without people dying, without threats, without fear, without evil, all those emotions. The universe never, ever has set out to destroy itself. Individuals have taken a universal energy and have interpreted that as their ability or right to do something like that. But as from the universal standpoint, it would never set out to destroy itself. All right. Let's see. When these topics come up, my go-to is to say I don't discuss politics with those I love. Yeah, lending money, politics, religion. Watch out. Thank you very much. Was that Deanna? Yeah, Donna. Oh, Donna Peters. Hi, Donna. So yeah, no. Sometimes I just no, out of bounds. It requires us. Are you ready for this? It requires us to find other things to talk about. And so, as crazy as this sounds, I can have discussions with certain people, but when we start doing the awfulizing, the discussion has to stop. We need to move on. And I have found, just my own experience, we have found some interesting little board games where you're talking about other things, other subject matters. We have found different topics we can talk about that moves the conversation in a different direction. Whatever we have to do, we do so that we can let something sit. It's unfolding. And our consciousness, if we hold our minds rightly, that everything is unfolding for a highest and best good. I don't need to engage with other people. I need to see the universe moving through its infinite logical and sequential order of things to express itself for the highest and best good. And I am open and receptive to seeing what I need to see. I need to be open and receptive to my blind spots where I'm not listening. I need to be open and receptive to those things. And I pray for the openness and receptivities of others so that they too may see. I don't pray for the outcome. I pray for an openness and a receptivity for those things to be done, right? So that's where I'm feeling on that. That's how I feel about that. All right, let me get another point that I wanted to make. oh no, hang on. Don't you love technology? Let's everybody say we love technology. Say it a lot lately. Technology blesses me. All right, hang on. There's one more thing I wanted to say. A couple more things. This is a direct approach to something that I see unfolding at a certain level on all of this. Religion is following the messenger. Spirituality is following the message. I want to know that the spirit of the message that we've been learning from great spiritual leaders and examples and teachers throughout our entire history, that the message is being revered and accepted and applied, not a person who's telling us how it is to be done. You know, in religious science and science of mind, we don't teach you what to think, we teach you how to think. That way you can decide how you can interpret whatever needs to be interpreted. All right. I need one more question before we end here, because we're coming up on 46. That's good. Hang on. All right. So this one popped up, and this popped up on my Facebook, and someone wrote this, and I want to share it with you because it has some meaning in all of this. One of the hardest pills I've had to swallow was realizing I meant nothing to people that meant a lot to me. And that's not blaming people for not being what you thought they should be. It's just my responsibility to not count on other people to make me happy. And I thought they were important to me, but obviously I'm not important to them. So how do I approach that? How do I gently and lovingly walk away from those relationships? And I have to tell you, people, it's possible. And I have found myself doing it more and more. And I found myself at peace more and more. Yeah, I've got a smaller circle, but my goal isn't to have the big circle. My goal is to have a circle of people that love me and support me and continue to love and support me. I don't need to have all of those other things. And it's not the quantity, it's the quality of the people that I'm surrounded with. So that's part of what I'm learning to be is part of my expression. All right. Another one. This is just a retrospect. And I thought 2020 would be the year I got everything I wanted. Now I know 2020 is the year I appreciate everything I have. So as we move into 2021, I love that. Someone just wrote, they were 7 days in. They said, I want to return 2021. I've had my 7-day trial period and I want to send it back. I thought that was pretty funny, but we can't send it back. We're in the middle of it. But what we can take is we can take the things that we've learned. And while we're walking through all of this chaos, we can appreciate the things we do have. And that's one way of always growing what you have in your life. When one appreciates it, it grows. That's just the way it works. Any more questions? Because I hope we got that kind of a discussion. For those of you who've been watching, I hope it helped you a little bit. I'm not sure if it did or not. I know that what I'm experiencing is what everyone else is experiencing. And am I perfect? Nope. And I'm not even close to it. And I wouldn't pretend to be even if I was. So there's no way I can tell you how to perfectly bypass this, because there is no perfect bypass. There's only breathing and moving through it and keeping an open and receptive mind to a greater thing expressing itself, and knowing that maybe, or not maybe, but knowing that indeed something greater is coming from all this stuff, that the birth pains that we're experiencing through all of this, and it's been a long birthing process, that something on the other side of this is bringing a unifying energy. How that happens, I have no idea, but can it happen? Absolutely. Absolutely it can happen, because it starts with you and it starts with me. And when I begin that process, when I'm the one that is actually engaged in the process of being open and receptive and listening and trying not to label things and just trusting the process that's in place for everything else, then I know that I'm part of the solution. If I'm out there awfulizing, if I'm out there screaming at the TV, which I did, I'm sorry. If I'm out there, projecting the fear, then I'm ingesting it, and I'm responsible for not just me ingesting it, but those around me, I'm feeding it to them. And would you want to feed other people toxic energy? No. So we just have to know. Let's just know that the wisdom of the universe, that nothing is ever greater than a universal intelligence. Nothing can outcreate God, and that indeed the universe is unfolding in a way that creates a highest and best good to unfold for all people. All right. I just know that to be true, and I continue to hold that as we go through this. So I hope in some way, shape, or form, this kind of had a dialogue. Thank you so much for being part of this. For those of you who tuned in. And like I said, it was by design that we did not go out and create a spiritual bypass for people just to like hook onto, because we all have to sit in this discomfort. We have to sit in this a little while and realize our part in it and our part of making it better. Okay. All right. So that ends the show for today. Please continue to support our work here at the Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert. We continue to do what we've done. I mean, we've got to be coming up close to 300 shows. We have broadcast 300. People say, what is the center doing? Why aren't they calling me? Why aren't they doing this? I'm like, you know what? We've put 300 different episodes and shows into the universe to make accessible for people. Now, I know some people don't have access to the web, but some people are just stubborn and don't want to make access. So we've done what we're doing, which is we've had personal reach out calls to people. If someone needs care, call us at the center. Elizabeth will dispatch whomever to the right place so that we can get things done for you. If that means picking up groceries, whatever that is, we're still there for you. We still have a very active prayer ministry. So I encourage you to stay in touch with your centers so they can stay in touch with you. If you'd like to volunteer to be one of those people who are calling during this time, reaching out to others, we can use more volunteers. If you would like to write letters, cards to people, just to let people know we're thinking about them. We've had a great deal of loss in our community, a couple COVID related, but regular just loss of people. And so we always, if you're at home and you're looking for a way to support and be of service to other people, because it's one thing to take, it's another thing to give during this time. So make sure your giving is balanced out and giving to the center of your time, your talent, and your treasure, as well as everything else that has to be done in the universe to sustain it and create a world that works for everyone. All right. So God bless you all. Thank you for tuning in. Please continue to support the donations at the center. You guys have a great week. And man, I can't wait till I get back in the sanctuary again. I just can't wait. Even just to tape a Sunday service. I look so forward to getting in there and that place and that space again and sharing that with you. All right. Namaste, everybody. Have a great, great, great week.